course, as you know, it's very difficult because they're always done in a foreign language. It's very difficult to sort of follow the plot, you know. So I'll just to give you a bit of help, I'll give you a rundown on one of these operas, and this particular one is called Tristen and Isold. Now the first act opens on a boat, what's going from Ireland to Cornwall, and on this boat are Tristen and Isold. Now this Tristen, he's been sent over to Ireland to bring back this Isold to marry his uncle, King Mark. He's a bachelor, about 94. They were a lot younger in those days, of course. Now, this Tristen, he's had a bit of a dalliance himself with this Isold in the past, and truth to tell, he has still got the hots for her, and her likewise for him, but he's very loyal to his uncle, so he slays her young man out of hand, bundles her aboard the boat willy-nilly, and the only thing he allows her to bring back with her is her handmaiden Brangain. Well, he fixes them up with a little tent on the deck while he stands up on the poop. And as you can imagine, when this Isold realises that he ain't snatched her for himself, but to marry her off to the old geezer, well, she does her nut, doesn't she? And she calls her handmaiden Brangain. She says, "Go on," she says, "go and tell him to come hither, because I want to give him a piece of my mind." So Brangain calls him hither, but he says, on no account can he leave the poop. So Brangain goes back and Isold says, "What did he say?" And Brangain says, "He said, on no account can he leave the poop, mum." So Isold says, "Right, I think I know what to do with a young man that won't leave the poop. You remember that little box of patent medicines mum gave us before we left? Bring it hither." So Brangain brings it hither, and Isold extracts a bottle of Tobasser, death lotion. And she hands it to Brangain. She says, "Yeah, do you mix up a drop of this? Ask him if he wants a drink." So Brangain calls him hither again, and this time he comes down off the poop onto the deck into the tent and says, "How now?" And Isold says, "Oh, I thought you might like a drink, ducks. I've got a drop of something rather special here." But this Brangain, she sussed out what's going on. Instead of mixing up death lotion, she's mixed up love lotion, Lieberwasser. And she hands the cup to Tristen and he quaffs. Well, then Isold snatches the cup out of his hand and she sees off the rest. Well, that starts it. You should hear that lotion music. That makes the Venusberg semiquaver sound like Christie's old organ. Well, first they start singing to one another. Tristen, Isolde, Tristen, Isolde. Then it gets nearer and nearer and nearer together until finally, wallop, he's got her. Act 2. The events of Act 2 are not entirely unexpected because they've obviously made a big impression on each other. Well, it's a beautiful moonlit night. Old King Mark, he's gone off on a moonlight hunt with all his host of hangers on, and soon as the coast is clear, this Isold comes out into the garden in her nightdress, if you please. She's a fine big girl, mind you, 15 or 16 stone, all nicely distributed, and she suddenly lets out a top A and a top B, fully supported on either side. "Tristen, beloved," she sings. And old Tristen, he comes out from behind a bush, and one thing leads to another, and, well, we're not children, are we? I'll tell you what, I'll read you a line or two from the actual libretto. Tristen takes Isold by the hand, leads her to a flowery bank, where they lies back enraptured. Look at him. Then he starts singing to her. "Glorious night of love, held in thine arms, bliss overbrimming, joy entrancing." Well, you can see the condition they're in. As a matter of fact, this is not unlike a situation in the second episode of The Ring of the Nibelungs, when a bloke called Sigmund turns himself into a wolf in order to commit arson with his sister. Yeah, he takes her in the woods, sings to her for a bit, and after a while he sets fire to her. Anyhow, now we get Siegfried called. Anyway, back to this other caper, what is known in the German Ulandspiegel. Old King Mark, he comes back from his moonlight hunt with all his host of hangers on, and he catches them at it, you see, in fragrenti delecto, or in delicious fragrance, as we like to call it. And I must say, he takes a very poor view of it. He says, "Tristen, old man," he says, "I'm surprised at you," he says. "There's a time and a place for everything," he says. Then one of his knights called Milo says, look Mark, let me give him something to go on with, and before you can say leitmotif, that's a Wagnerian making call, whipped out his sword, taking a lunge at old Tristen, who falls to the ground seriously wounded just as the curtain drops. And when it goes up again, about half hour later, he's still seriously wounded, only this time he's lying on a bed in a dilapidated courtyard with all his faithful henchmen by his side. There they are, singing to one another to pass the time. And when they've been at it for about 3/4 of an hour, this Isold comes sailing onto the stage, just like a breath of fresh air, full of sunshine, still in her nightdress. She goes over to old Tristen, kneels down before him, puts his head up on her chest, right up there, and then he expires. So she turns him over and expires on top of him. And when the old king comes in with all his host of hangers on, there they are all piled up there, and he says, well, 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 well. And down comes the curtain.